The radio telescope array hummed softly in the background as Dr. Elena Novak rubbed her tired eyes. 3 nights of minimal sleep had left dark circles under her eyes, but she couldn't tear herself away from the monitors. The signal had appeared again, faint, rhythmic, and utterly unlike anything in the astronomical databases. "Elena, go home. The signal will still be there tomorrow," said Dr. Patel, her research partner, placing a steaming cup of coffee beside her keyboard. "Just another hour," Elena replied, not taking her eyes off the screen. "There's a pattern here, Raj. I can feel it." The Burke Observatory was nearly empty at this late hour. Most researchers had left, but Elena remained transfixed by the strange pulses coming from HD 189733b, an exoplanet 63 light-years away. The signals defied conventional explanation, too regular to be natural, too complex to be simple cosmic noise. After Raj left, Elena leaned closer to her screen, adjusting parameters and filtering background radiation. The signal strengthened, forming patterns that almost resembled language. Her heart raced. This wasn't random, this was structured, intentional. She worked through the night, forgetting time as she mapped the signal's variations. Dawn broke over the desert landscape surrounding the observatory when Elena finally stumbled to the small cot in her office, her mind still processing the mathematical sequences hidden in the transmissions. As sleep claimed her, something unusual happened. Her dreams, normally fragmented and forgettable, crystallized into vivid scenes. She found herself in a strange environment, the air shimmer with an opalescent quality, and gravity felt lighter. Before her stood a figure unlike any human, yet oddly familiar. Tall and slender with skin that seemed to shift colors like the surface of a soap bubble, the being regarded her with eyes that contained moving galaxies. Despite the alien appearance, Elena felt no fear. Finally, the being's voice resonated directly in her mind. "Your consciousness has aligned with ours. Who are you?" Elena asked, surprised she could speak in this dreamscape. "I am Taris. We have been sending signals to your world for many cycles, seeking minds receptive to our communication. The pulses from HD 189733b, that was you?" Taris moved closer, movements fluid like water. "Yes. Few of your species can perceive our true messages. Your mind is different." Elena felt simultaneously terrified and fascinated. "This is just a dream. My overtired brain processing astronomical data." "Is it?" Taris challenged. "Tomorrow night, look for a new pattern in our transmission, one that will contain the mathematical proof of our conversation." Before Elena could respond, the dream dissolved. She woke with a gasp, sunlight streaming through her office blinds. The dream remained crystal clear in her memory, unlike the usual morning fog of forgotten nighttime imaginings. "Too much coffee and isolation," she muttered, trying to rationalize the experience. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of connection that lingered. That evening, Elena returned to her monitors with renewed energy. She adjusted the receivers, focusing on the exact frequency from her previous observations. For hours, nothing changed, the same pulsing pattern continued. Then, at precisely 3:17 a.m., the signal shifted. Before her eyes, the transmission displayed a complex mathematical sequence, one that precisely matched equations she had written in her private research journal but never published or shared. Elena's hands trembled as she recorded the data. This couldn't be coincidence. Either she was experiencing an elaborate hallucination, or something truly extraordinary was happening. That night, as she drifted to sleep, she whispered to the empty room, "Taris? Are you real?" And in her dreams, the alien was waiting. Elena's life split into 2 distinct realities. By day, she was Dr. Novak, respected astronomer carefully documenting the anomalous signal pattern from HD 189733b. By night, she entered increasingly complex dreamscapes with Taris, learning about a civilization that evolved beyond physical limitations into beings of consciousness capable of projecting across vast distances. Your species values physical evidence, Taris explained during their fourth dream meeting. They stood in a simulation of Taris's homeworld, a landscape of crystalline structures under 3 moons. But connection between sentient minds transcends physical reality. My colleagues would need more than dreams, Elena replied, watching prismatic light dance through the alien architecture. They'd need tangible proof. Taris's form rippled with what Elena had come to recognize as amusement. Perhaps that can be arranged. The dreams affected Elena's waking life. Her colleagues noticed her distraction, the way she dozed at odd hours to sync with when the signals were strongest. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but they also noticed her brilliant new insights into signal processing and quantum communication theories. Whatever you're doing, it's impressive, Dr. Patel commented after she presented her latest findings. But I'm worried about you, Elena. I'm fine, she insisted. Just inspired. In private, Elena documented everything. Her apartment walls became covered with notes, equations Taris had taught her, and sketches of technology beyond human development. She knew how it would look to others, the stereotypical obsessed scientist, one step away from conspiracy theories. Yet the mathematical precision of what Taris shared was undeniable. You've been given an unusual path, her grandmother had once told her. Elena, a mixed heritage child who never quite fit in anywhere, had found belonging in science and mathematics. Now, that same outsider perspective helped her accept what others would deem impossible. After 3 weeks of nightly communications, Taris announced something unexpected. The alignment approaches. Physical transit becomes possible. You're coming here? Elena asked, her dream self experiencing very real shock. A small vessel. 1 passenger. A temporary embassy, you might say. When? During your next meteor shower. The radiation will provide necessary cover. Elena woke with a start. The Perseid meteor shower was only 2 days away. She checked her phone, 4:32 a.m. and found 17 missed calls from the observatory. Elena, where have you been? Dr. Jackson, the observatory director, demanded when she called back. The signal changed dramatically. We're seeing power levels orders of magnitude higher. I'll be right there, she promised, heart racing. The next 48 hours passed in a blur. The astronomical community buzzed with excitement over the HD 189733b anomaly. Elena worked feverishly, dividing her attention between official research and secret preparations. She arranged to be alone at the observatory's smaller outstation during the meteor shower peak, claiming she needed specialized equipment for her observations. The night of the Perseids arrived clear and cold. Elena positioned herself at the remote station, ostensibly tracking meteors but actually scanning for something else entirely. Around midnight, the meteor shower reached its spectacular peak, filling the sky with streaks of light. At precisely 2:17 a.m., one particular meteor caught her attention. Unlike the others, it decelerated, changed course subtly, and descended toward the desert hills 3 kilometers from her position. Elena's hands shook as she switched to thermal imaging. The object, no larger than a small car, had landed intact in a gully. Its heat signature was unlike any meteorite, too cold on the exterior, with pulsing energy patterns within. She grabbed her emergency pack, jumped into her jeep, and drove recklessly across the rough terrain. The reality of what she was doing hit her fully. She was rushing alone into the desert night to meet an extraterrestrial being she'd only encountered in dreams. When she reached the impact site, a soft glow emanated from the gully. The vessel looked nothing like imagined UFOs, more organic than mechanical, with a surface that reminded her of an abalone shell, shifting colors even in the darkness. For several minutes, Elena stood frozen, her scientific mind battling with inexplicable emotion. This was either the greatest discovery in human history or an elaborate delusion. Then the vessel's surface rippled, and an opening formed. Light spilled out, illuminating the desert floor. A figure emerged, tall, slender, and moving with impossible grace. "Taris?" Elena whispered, her voice catching. The being turned toward her. Though alien in form, the eyes were immediately familiar, the same ones she'd been seeing in her dreams for weeks. "Elena Novak," came the response, not spoken but felt in her mind. "Our theories were correct. Physical translation has succeeded." Elena stepped forward on trembling legs, academic training forgotten as wonder overtook her. "You're really here?" "Yes," Taris replied, extending a shimmering hand toward her. "Now our real work begins." The journey back to Elena's small house on the outskirts of town was tense. Every passing car made her heart race, the reality of who sat beside her in the passenger seat almost incomprehensible. Taris observed everything with intense curiosity, body shifting subtly to absorb each new sensory input from Earth. "Your atmosphere feels dense to me," Taris communicated, mind voice tinged with something like amusement. "And your gravity is insistent." Elena couldn't help but laugh despite her nerves. "We find it keeps things nicely grounded." At her home, a modest place chosen for its privacy and proximity to the observatory, she hurriedly ushered Taris inside. The alien's form seemed to shimmer slightly under artificial light, skin refracting colors like mother-of-pearl. Up close, Elena noticed delicate patterns etched across Taris's features, mathematical sequences that shifted with each movement. "You'll need to stay hidden," Elena explained, closing all blinds and curtains. "If people discover you." "I understand. Your species fears what it does not comprehend," Taris replied, examining a houseplant with gentle touches. "This organism communicates through chemical signals." "Fascinating." Elena watched, researcher's mind cataloging every detail about her visitor. Taris stood nearly 7 feet tall, impossibly slender with elongated limbs that moved with fluid grace. No visible mouth, just resonating chambers along what might be considered a neck. Those eyes, though, deep and swirling with what looked like miniature galaxies, were the most expressive feature. "Can you eat our food? Drink our water?" Elena asked, suddenly aware of practical concerns. "My form can process your water with minor filtration," Taris explained. "But sustenance comes primarily from electromagnetic energy and certain wavelengths of light." The next days established a strange routine. Elena called in sick to work, something she'd never done, claiming a severe flu. By day, she taught Taris about human culture through books, music, and careful internet searches, while Taris shared knowledge about cosmic phenomena humans had barely theorized. "Your physics models are partially correct," Taris explained one evening, manipulating sand grains on Elena's coffee table to demonstrate complex gravitational concepts. "But you misunderstand the relationship between consciousness and matter." Elena recorded everything, filling notebooks with revolutionary equations and concepts. Professional caution warred with excitement. This knowledge could transform human understanding of the universe, yet revealing its source would be impossible. Physical communication between them evolved. Though Taris primarily communicated telepathically, they began developing a sign language incorporating mathematical symbols. Elena found herself increasingly attuned to Taris's thought patterns, sometimes anticipating concepts before they were expressed. "Your mind has remarkable adaptability," Taris observed. "Most of your species would resist the neural reconfiguration." More surprising than the intellectual connection was the emotional one forming between them. Elena found herself sharing personal stories, her childhood struggles as a mixed-race child with an absent father, her grandmother's encouragement toward science, her social isolation as her academic focus intensified. Taris shared too, coming from a civilization where individuality eventually blends into a collective consciousness, yet some, like Tari's, maintain stronger individual identities as bridges to other species. Loneliness, Tari said one night, the concept flowing into Elena's mind with complicated harmonics. This is a universal experience, spanning species and star systems. 1 week after arrival, during a rare moment when Elena ventured out for supplies, disaster struck. She returned to find her front door slightly ajar. Heart pounding, she rushed inside to find Marcus Chen, her colleague from the observatory, standing frozen in her living room, staring at Tari's. "Marcus!" Elena gasped. He turned slowly, face drained of color. "Elena! Who is this?" "I can explain," she began, knowing full well she couldn't. "This is connected to the signal, isn't it?" Marcus's scientific mind was already making connections. "Is this not from Earth?" "Correct," Tari's answered directly into both their minds, causing Marcus to stagger backward. "Marcus, please," Elena reached for him. "You can't tell anyone." "Not yet." "Do you understand what this means?" Marcus whispered, eyes never leaving Tari's. "It changes everything, astronomy, biology, physics, religion, philosophy. Which is why we need time," Elena insisted. "Time to prepare humanity for contact." For a moment, Marcus seemed to consider her words. Then his eyes hardened. "The world needs to know, Elena. The scientific community has a right to this discovery. Promise me you won't say anything," Elena pleaded. "Just give me a few days." Marcus backed toward the door. "I need to think. I need to think." After he left, Elena collapsed onto her couch, trembling. "He'll tell someone. Maybe not the public, but someone at the observatory." Tari's moved beside her, a comforting presence despite alien form. "Then our time of secrecy draws to a close. Are you prepared for what comes next?" Elena looked up at the being she'd grown so unexpectedly close to. "No. But I don't see that we have much choice." That night, Elena's phone rang repeatedly, calls from the observatory director, from colleagues, even one from a government number she didn't recognize. She silenced them all, focusing instead on what mattered most, protecting Tari's and the profound connection they had formed. "If they come for you," Elena said quietly as night deepened, "I won't let them treat you like a specimen to be studied." "I know," Tari's replied, reaching out to touch Elena's hand with gossamer fingers. "That is why I chose you." The pounding on Elena's door came at 4:37 a.m. She jolted awake on the couch where she'd fallen asleep, Tari's shimmering form immediately alert beside her. "Dr. Novak. This is Agent Rivera with the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. We need you to open the door immediately." Elena exchanged glances with Tari's, whose iridescent skin had dimmed to camouflage in the darkness. "They're here faster than I expected," she whispered. "Your colleague's loyalty to scientific discovery exceeded his loyalty to you," Tari's observed without judgment. Through the window, Elena spotted government vehicles surrounding her property. Men in tactical gear positioned themselves at all exit points. This wasn't just a scientific inquiry, this was a containment operation. "Dr. Novak, we have authorization to enter by force if necessary," came Agent Rivera's voice again. Elena's mind raced. Her small house had only 2 exits, both covered. The bathroom window might be large enough for her to squeeze through, but certainly not Tari's tall frame. "We need to establish direct neural synchronization," Tari suggested suddenly. "It will allow us to share sensory information and coordinate our actions." "You mean, deepen our mental connection?" Elena asked, heart racing for reasons beyond just fear. "Yes. Time is limited." Another round of pounding. "Final warning, Dr. Novak." Elena nodded. Do it. Tari's placed long, translucent fingers against Elena's temples. The sensation that followed defied description, like diving into warm water while simultaneously feeling every neuron in her brain reconfiguring. Colors intensified, sounds separated into distinct layers, and suddenly she could perceive electromagnetic fields pulsing around them. Most disorienting was the dual consciousness. She remained Elena but now carried Tari's awareness too, complete with memories of a crystalline homeworld orbiting a binary star system. The bathroom, she gasped, new insights flooding her mind. The ceramic tiles, they can be vibrationally destabilized with the right frequency. Yes, Tari's confirmed, already moving. As the front door splintered open, Elena and Tari's locked themselves in the bathroom. Tari's pressed both hands against the floor tiles and emitted a high-pitched resonance that made Elena's teeth ache. The ceramic began to vibrate, then crack, revealing the crawlspace beneath. Down! Elena urged as footsteps thundered through her house. They dropped into the dark space just as the bathroom door crashed open. Elena led them through the cramped underbelly of the house, their enhanced connection allowing them to move in perfect coordination even in complete darkness. They emerged through an access panel behind the garden shed just as agents circled the house perimeter. Elena recognized the observatory director arguing with Marcus near one of the vehicles. "Stay low," she whispered unnecessarily. Tari's could perceive her thoughts directly now. Using the neural synchronization, they avoided detection, slipping past the security perimeter to reach Elena's old Jeep parked down the service road. Hot wiring it was surprisingly easy with Tari's knowledge of energy manipulation. As they sped away into the desert night, Elena processed the magnitude of what she'd done. Career destroyed. Likely facing federal charges. Classified as a national security threat. Your sacrifice is significant, Tari's acknowledged, sensing her thoughts. Few beings across any world would risk so much for an unknown entity. Not entirely unknown, Elena countered, memories of their dream connections and shared weeks flooding through her mind. I know you better than anyone on Earth. The mental bond between them strengthened as they drove toward the mountains. Elena could access fragments of Tari's vast knowledge, stellar cartography, temporal physics, consciousness transference. Simultaneously, Tari's absorbed human concepts previously incomprehensible, humor, poetry, the peculiar satisfaction of eating ice cream. Where are we going? Elena asked aloud, though she could partially sense the answer. My vessel relocated itself after our arrival, a security protocol. It awaits in what you call the Gila Mountains. Dawn broke as they abandoned the Jeep and hiked into remote canyons. Helicopter sounds occasionally echoed in the distance. The neural connection allowed them to sense approaching search teams long before visual contact, enabling them to remain hidden. By midday, they reached a secluded ravine where Tari's vessel gleamed softly against the red rocks. It had altered its appearance to mimic the surrounding geology, visible only because they knew exactly where to look. As they approached, the vessel responded to Tari's presence, outer shell becoming translucent. Inside was a single chamber filled with technology so advanced it appeared organic, pulsing with life. This craft can return me home, Tari's explained, both verbally and mentally. Or. The unspoken alternative hung between them. Elena could feel Tari's homeworld pulling, a civilization that valued knowledge above all, that had long studied humanity from afar. She sensed Tari's responsibility as an ambassador, the expectation of return with research findings. Yet intertwined with this was something unexpected that had grown between them, connection transcending species, a bond neither had anticipated when communication first began through dreams. They're coming, Elena warned, sensing approaching vehicles. We don't have much time. Tari's moved to the vessel's control interface, a crystalline structure that responded to thought. Elena Novak, I must ask directly. Our neural synchronization is temporary without regular reinforcement. If you remain on Earth, our connection will fade to memory. Elena looked back toward the direction of approaching authorities, then to the being who had transformed her understanding of everything. And if I go with you? She asked, already knowing the answer resonating through their shared consciousness. Then we journey together, across stars neither of us would explore alone. The sound of vehicles grew closer as Elena faced the most momentous decision of her life. The desert air shimmered with heat as a convoy of black SUVs and military vehicles rumbled toward their position. Dust clouds rose behind them like warning signals against the blue sky. They had perhaps 10 minutes before discovery. Elena stood at the threshold of Taris's vessel, her mind racing with possibilities and consequences. Through their neural connection, she sensed Taris's patience. This species measured time differently, existing across centuries rather than decades. Yet beneath that patience ran an unmistakable current of hope. What would I be leaving behind? Elena whispered, though the question was unnecessary. Images flashed through her consciousness, her small office at the observatory, stacks of research papers, the grave of her grandmother with wildflowers she'd planted last spring. And what would I be gaining? This question too answered itself through their connection: galaxies unimaginable, civilizations beyond human comprehension, knowledge that would take lifetimes to absorb. They will classify you as a traitor, Taris observed, the thought tinged with regret. Your work discredited, your discoveries attributed to others. Elena laughed softly. Funny how that seems less important now. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her research notebooks, filled with equations, observations, and the record of their first connections through dreams. She placed them carefully on a flat rock near the vessel's entrance. Someone will find these, she said. Maybe not right away, but eventually. The seeds of understanding should remain on Earth, even if I don't. The sound of vehicles grew louder. A helicopter appeared over the ridge, its rotors beating the air. Elena, Taris communicated, emotions flowing freely through their connection now. I cannot guarantee your safety or happiness among my kind. I cannot promise you will not regret this choice. We are venturing into unknown territory for both our species. Elena smiled and stepped fully into the vessel. Isn't that what explorers do? The craft sealed seamlessly behind her, interior illuminating with soft, pulsing light that responded to their presence. Through the translucent walls, Elena watched as government agents swarmed into the ravine, weapons raised. Agent Rivera emerged from the lead vehicle, megaphone in hand. Dr. Novak. This vessel and its occupant are now property of the United States government. Exit immediately and you will be treated fairly. Elena placed her palm against the vessel's wall, feeling its subtle vibration. Through their mental bond, she sensed Taris initiating launch sequences, processes so complex they defied human language but now felt intuitive to her enhanced perception. Will I ever return? She asked, watching the frantic activity outside as agents established a perimeter. Time flows differently between stars, Taris replied. If we return, Earth may be greatly changed, or we may find a way to bend time itself. The vessel began to hum, a sound felt more than heard. Outside, instruments were being hastily assembled, likely to attempt disabling or containing the craft. Too late. The ravine filled with light as the vessel activated its propulsion system. Elena's last view of Earth was Agent Rivera's face, mouth open in astonishment, hand raised as if to reach for something precious slipping away. Then they were rising, faster than human technology could track, beyond atmosphere into the velvet darkness of space. Elena expected fear but found instead an overwhelming sense of wonder as Earth became a blue marble, then a distant point, then one star among countless others. Through their neural connection, Taris shared the voyage home, a journey that would take weeks rather than the centuries light would require. Elena experienced the strange folding of spacetime, the vessel navigating dimensional passages that human physics had only theorized. During this transit, their connection deepened. Elena learned Tari's true name, a complex harmonic impossible for human vocal cords but beautiful in thought form. She learned of Tari's position as an explorer emissary, one of only 7 such beings tasked with finding compatible consciousness across the galaxy. We have contacted 17 species across 12,000 years, Tari's explained as they passed a binary star system. But never has an individual chosen to join us. Why me? Elena asked, the question that had lingered since their first dream connection. Images flowed between them, Elena as a child counting stars from her grandmother's porch, Elena defying professors who dismissed her theories, Elena alone at the observatory when others had abandoned the strange signal as anomalous noise. You were always looking outward, Tari's answered simply. Most minds turn inward, concerned only with their immediate sphere. Yours reached for the unknown. As they approached Tari's homeworld, a crystalline planet orbiting a red giant star, Elena sensed apprehension through their connection. Your people don't know about me, do they? No, Tari's admitted. Your arrival will create discussion. Elena laughed, the sound strange in the vessel's chamber. I've been challenging expectations my entire life. Why stop now? The planet grew larger in their view, structures unlike anything human imagination had conceived rose from its surface, capturing and redirecting light in complex patterns. Elena sensed the collective consciousness of Tari's species, billions of minds networked together yet maintaining individual identity, their attention now turning toward the approaching vessel and its unprecedented cargo. They're curious about you, Tari's communicated. And somewhat concerned. Tell them. Elena paused, searching for words adequate to the moment. Tell them I bring greetings from Earth, and an open mind. As the vessel began its descent through shifting atmospheric layers, Elena felt neither regret nor fear, only the certainty that she stood at the beginning of something extraordinary. What awaited her on this alien world was unknown, but the universe had already given her more than she had ever dreamed possible. She reached out, her human hand meeting Tari's shimmering one, different forms united by shared consciousness. Ready? Tari's asked, both in word and thought. Elena nodded, eyes fixed on the approaching wonder of a new world. Together. The vessel touched down on crystalline soil, opening to a sky filled with impossible colors and the gentle presence of many minds reaching curiously toward her own. Elena Novak, astronomer from Earth, took her first breath on an alien world, the first human to journey beyond the stars not for conquest or claim, but for connection. And as she stepped forward into her new life, the stars themselves seemed to whisper, this is just the beginning.